Last week, a wild mob of young thugs took to the streets of Chicago for an evening of destroying any hope that brain-functioning people would ever go into that city of Chicago just for a visit. I'll bet you U-Haul is having a great month renting trucks and vans to help people move out of what once was one of my favorite big cities in the world to visit. What went down last week was shocking, even by current standards of lawless lunatics, as thousands of crazed and violent hooligans destroyed cars, attacked innocent tourists on the famed, once very safe and hospitable Michigan Avenue, and jumped on cars like hyenas in the wild. The police couldn't control or contain the rioters. They were breaking windows, looting stores. And listen to the agony in this woman's voice who's just trying to buy food for her children at a store that has been completely destroyed.
Look at this. Came in the store to try to buy something because I'm not a thief. Look at this. In my hood, can't even get no food for my kids. Babies need milk. Can't even get nothing for my kids, bro. I feel like an animal, and black people made me feel like an animal. I am so devastated right now, G. This is not okay.
My heart breaks for that young mother who just wanted to go to the store to buy food for her family, and she walks in and sees that. Those are the people that are getting hurt by this. And the consequences of these kids' actions are tragic. And this happened just a few days after Walmart announced that it was going to close 4 of its stores in the city of Chicago because the crime was so bad that they couldn't protect their employees and said they were losing millions of dollars. Folks, it's pretty bad when the world's largest retailer loses millions of dollars in a store because people walk right in and rob the place blind and empty their shelves in broad daylight because they know their crimes aren't going to be stopped and they're not going to be punished. Just when you didn't think any mayor in America could be worse than Chicago's Lori Lightfoot, along comes Brandon Johnson, the new mayor-elect of Chicago, who says, "Hold my beer and watch this." By the way, it's probably a Bud Light beer with a photo of a pretend little girl, Dylan Mulvaney, on the can. Probably. And what was the response of the incoming mayor to the mayhem on Michigan Avenue? He said, and I quote, "It is not constructive to demonize youth who have otherwise been starved of opportunities in their own communities. Our city must create spaces for youth to gather safely and responsibly under adult grievance, guidance, and supervision to ensure that every part of our city remains welcome for both residents and visitors," end quote. How do people end up thinking such reckless and selfish actions are okay? Now, maybe it started when these guys were 3 years old, when no one told them no or ever swatted their backsides. Look, I realize it's not fashionable to say it, but many of these wild and violent young adults needed to have had their britches set on fire with a switch belt or paddle when they were 5. And then maybe the cops wouldn't have to use clubs, mace, and tasers on them when they were 18. Okay, I realize the lack of real dads in their lives and absentee moms who are having to work multiple jobs or maybe who are drug or alcohol addicted created an environment where basic human relationship skills weren't hardwired into them. But the solution is certainly not to allow lawlessness to continue into their adult years. I admit, I grew up really differently. I grew up poor, but I grew up in a home with hardworking and honest parents where I understood from the earliest age that bad behavior had real consequences. And I learned that bad behavior just wasn't worth it. You see, my father was a very patriotic man, a real stars and stripes guy. He laid on the stripes, and I saw the stars, okay? Patriotism. Now, I'm sure that some do-gooder psychologists would say that my parents were too harsh, and they stifled my mental development. And I would say that highly educated idiots like that are exactly what's wrong with a lot of kids. They never learned right and wrong in the playground. And if you don't learn it in the playground, now the entire community is having to pay for them to learn it in prison. And most of them, sadly, won't get it there either. Look, I'm not a lock the door and throw away the key kind of person. I've known too many wayward sons experience the life-changing encounter with the real Father. You know, the one who art in heaven. But as a society, we ought to be more about forming young lives than trying to reform those lives after they've embarked on a career of crime, craziness, and killing. Chicago has been run by Democrat mayors since 1931 without interruption. Its current nightmare is being replicated in many major American cities like New York, San Francisco, Portland, Atlanta, and more. The common denominator is leftist leadership that protects and coddles violent criminals. The decent people live in constant terror. But here's a word to the wise, if any are left. Keep voting in complete idiots devoid of common sense and a sense of duty to the law, and you will never have a moment's peace where you live, if you can even stay alive in such a living hell. Hey, Mike Huckabee here. Listen, if you love your mom, apple pie, and being conservative, you know you ought to subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and click the like button, and show all the leftists out there that conservatives are thriving and patriotism is far from dead. Am I pandering too much? No way. I'm just getting started.